and Kenyans as well. And for the past 7 years, Kenya's debt has sharply risen from a manageable 1.79 trillion shillings debt in 2013 to an alarming 7.25 trillion shillings debt in 2020. This comes even as the country continues to pile more debt on the existing ones, with the current debt ceiling of 9 trillion shillings poised to be pushed even higher in the coming months. For this reason, the President Uhuru Kenyatta-led government that took over in 2013, just when the debt figures began to swell, has found itself at the center of the storm, even as it refutes claims that the country is headed into a debt distress. But who is fooling whom? David Mudhoka tells us who.
In 2013, just as President Uhuru Kenyatta was taking over from his predecessor Mwai Kibaki, the country seemed headed towards the right debt direction. At the time, an arguably manageable debt of 1.79 trillion shillings comprising of 981.9 billion shillings domestic debt and 812.7 billion shillings external debt stood in the way of the exchequer and the break-even point. 7 years on, that debt has shot up 4 times. As at November last year, the national debt stood at 7.25 trillion shillings, with 3.77 trillion shillings being sourced from external lenders and the remaining 3.48 trillion shillings procured locally. But how does the country find itself in such a position 7 years down the line? How did 1.79 trillion shillings of debt in 2013 become 7.25 trillion shillings worth of debt in just a span of 7 years? Increased spending has been at the center of the swelling figures, with the government forced to seek loans year in, year out to support its budget, repay loans and carry out infrastructure development.
The issue of debt is not about incurring debt. It's about how you use that debt. Are you using that debt to expand your economy? Are you using that debt to expand your GDP? Are you using that debt to open up your country?
To set the pace to what has since become a borrowing binge by the government in those 7 years, President Kenyatta announced the borrowing of the first Eurobond, totaling to 280 billion shillings in June 2014, meant for budgetary support and repayment of a syndicate loan. 4 years later, the government in 2018 went for another Eurobond, netting 202 billion shillings. In an interview in December that year, President Kenyatta defended the borrowing amid piling pressure on the insatiable appetite for loans.
I have almost 60% of the Republic of Kenya connected to power. My friend, for those kind of reasons, I will borrow. Not to consume, to develop.
Development.
Right. To develop.
Even before the dust from Eurobond Season 2 could settle, in 2019 the government went to the international market again and borrowed another 210 billion shillings to repay other loans and fund unspecified infrastructure projects. It now remains a matter of when, not if, the country will receive another 508 billion shillings Eurobond loan, bringing the total amount of Eurobond loans procured by the Kenyatta administration to 1.2 trillion shillings. The expensive commercial Eurobonds come on top of other loans sought by the Kenyan administration in those 7 years, most notably from the International Monetary Fund (IMF), as well as from commercial banks. Rampant misappropriation of the loans either through corruption or by investing in dormant projects has seen the government unable to service the ballooning debt, thus resorting to borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
Juu wanachukua mikopo, wanapatia mabwanyenye, wanakura. Wako na maskado na hakuna pahali wanawapeleka.
Maendeleo si mbaya na kila mtu angependa maendeleo, lakini shida iliyoko ni hii. Hiyo maendeleo inamuaffect mwananchi wa kawaida, sababu hii mikopo ni lazima itarudi kwetu.
For those reasons, the government has come under fire from a section of Kenyans who, in a daring social media attempt earlier this month, called on the IMF to stop processing loans to Kenya. However, the IMF went on to lend Kenya a 255.9 billion shillings loan and approve the latest Eurobond loan, albeit with stricter conditions touching on transparency and accountability. The borrowing trend could see the debt burden hit 10 trillion shillings by the time President Kenyatta's last budget is implemented in 2023, amid plans to raise the debt ceiling past 9 trillion shillings. David Mudhoka, TV 47.